Well, folks, welcome to another episode of the Noble Man Podcast. We're here in the office again. It worked out well for us to do this for a couple of episodes. And I have as my guest for this episode a friend from a long time ago, Bruce Moseley.
Yep.
And so Bruce is at Bethel Baptist Church, Midlothian. And so welcome to the podcast, Bruce.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Good to have you here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
And you know what? It occurs to me, I didn't think about this as we were chatting earlier, but let's talk about how far we go back in terms of knowing each other.
Oh my gosh.
Because you guys may not know this who listen to the podcast, but my wife and I, Stacy and I, came to Richmond in the summer of '98 so that I could work with my father-in-law in a custom home building business. And so Art Avent is my father-in-law. And you and your company, Moseley Electronics, were doing what? Structured cabling and what services?
Well, at that time, we were doing security systems and central vacuum and intercom, and this was way back, before structured cabling was invented.
Okay.
But yeah, we go back a long, long ways. Mike was a superintendent for Art Avent, which was A&A Homes.
Yeah.
And, we learned about each other. Mike left to start BetterMan.
Or Noble Warriors.
Noble Warriors, yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh,
to start Noble Warriors. And, I always joke, Mike, that you married the boss's daughter and then quit. That's
what I did.
But no, it's been a long time we've known each other, and it's really neat what you're doing here.
Yeah.
So I have, I was immediately intrigued and had known you through the years and seen what you've been doing here. So.
Well, and that's part of the fun of this because we reminisce about some of those things, but right now we're getting to do something really cool together that honestly is a little bit more exciting than building houses. We're building men, building families, seeing the kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. And so you're catalyzing a men's movement there at Bethel. But even that goes back a long way. So tell me about how God captured your heart years ago through what?
Promise Keepers.
Okay, tell me the Promise Keepers story.
Yeah, well, back about the turn of the century, I had teenage and young adult children at that time. I was going through a lot of problems within the family, typical young adult problems. Yeah. And, was looking for an answer because I just could not solve these problems by myself, and I knew it, So I was invited to Promise Keepers, ended up changing my life completely. And, at that time, I went to one, and then I went to a second, then a third. And
now, were you saved before that? You're walking with Jesus, but just dealing with life. And Stacy and I are in this space right now, parents of adult children. There's not a lot of help on figuring some of those things out.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of men, I grew up in the church.
Yeah.
I grew up as a believer, was baptized when I was like 12 or 13 years old. As a young adult, I got away from Christ. I got away from God and the Word. Spent about 15 years floundering, let's say, and then when all these things came kind of crashing down along with my parents passing away at the same time, it was just too much, and I knew it.
Yeah.
And so, Promise Keepers really changed my life. And then, as time went on, I became more and more active in the church, became more active in leadership in the church. Right. And then it was really recently, about a year ago, that we had some events that happened that kind of sparked me into getting something going. I just said, I've been thinking about this too long. I've got to do something. So it was really the events, it was really two things. One is one of my grandchildren, actually two of my grandchildren were asking me a lot of questions about the Bible and about what this means and what that means. And, of course, if you're not used to reading the Bible, you sometimes look at it and go, what does all this mean? So I was into explaining things to my grandson and a good friend of his. My granddaughter was coming to me with a lot of questions. On top of that, we had the Charlie Kirk event, that happened about the same exact time. Yeah. And I just said, this is it. We got to get something going here.
Well, so let me ask you, as a grandfather, when those grandchildren are coming to you and asking you those questions, did that just swell your heart up and make you excited? Did you find that frustrating, challenging? What was your emotion in that? Because I think there are a lot of guys who are probably dealing with some of that.
Quite frankly, Mike, it was an answer to a prayer.
Yeah.
I had been praying for my grandchildren and their parents to become more involved, in the children's lives around Christ and around learning about, what the Bible is all about.
Yeah.
It's a history of the world, if you think about it. So, when we got, it was really, it built me up a lot. It gave me a lot of pride to know that they had seen in me something that they wanted to know more about. So, I really was extremely happy, and I felt like it was an answer to a prayer.
Yeah. All right, let me, I told you I was going to ask you this before. How old are you, Bruce?
74.
74. Okay, now this is a critical point, folks. Listen to this, because there are lots of seasoned men, is what I can, and I'm deeper and deeper into the seasoned men realm myself. But there are a lot of seasoned men that think that the younger generations are not interested at all in our lives, our wisdom, what we have. But I'm finding that is maybe an inhibition or a barrier for us. But those younger folks are really interested in the wisdom and the experience. They want the authenticity of life that has been lived, in many cases, rather than the artificial life of Instagram and all of that stuff. And so hear this, that Bruce is 74 and his grandchildren were coming to him asking him questions, and it was an answer to prayer. And it's just a cool scenario that they wanted to be with you.
Well, the more I researched it, the more I found out that Gen Z is the fastest growing group in the church right now.
Yeah.
And, I think these kids are lost.
Yeah.
They just don't, they see all these things happening. They're worried about the wars, about crime, about people being attacked, and they wonder, what's life all about? Is this all there is?
Yeah, is this all there is? And then when they come with that question and you get to take them to the Word and to Jesus Christ and share your faith and your experience and what it looks like lived out, then all of a sudden, they begin to see that there are some anchor points. There's some things that you can rely on. There's some security in Christ that they can't find in other places. And man, as a grandfather, to be the one who gets to share that with them is, man, that's just really cool.
I'm just really proud, of my grandchildren. And they are really coming a long ways in their faith. They're being baptized. I'm just very, very proud of the steps that they are taking to enrich their lives and to learn more about the Word.
Yeah. So you and I interacted about your desire to do something to stir things up at Bethel. Mm-hmm. And so I think our first shot at that, I think you and I talked about it, and then we had lunch together with Pastor Todd and a couple of other key guys, and we just kind of talked through it. I shared BetterMan with you, and you guys kind of took it back and kind of worked through it a little bit to get an idea about whether or not we could move forward.
Yeah, and I think really the neat thing, Mike, and I applaud you for the approach that you have led us with here, is that the first thing was to build a leadership team, a group of guys that really want to push this forward. Yeah. And your advice was to pray about it, and that's exactly what I did. And Pastor Todd and myself both were praying about it. We were both coming up with names. We got this group together, and it was just amazing, you know, how the group bonded during going through the core series in BetterMan. And now we have vowed to each other that we want to keep going. Yeah. We just want to keep going. We want to stay together.
That's awesome.
And it opens a lot of doors. Yeah. I think the better, we're all taught as children, and especially in my generation, I was raised by World War II parents.
Yes.
You know? And, you know, when you were being brought up, you were being told, be a man, rub some dirt in it, keep things to yourself, don't talk about them. Real men solve their own problems. Right. You know? And I think we learned pretty early on in the BetterMan series that really is not the right way. Yeah. You know, to build a Christ-like relationship within a group of men. Yeah. So the first thing we did was we coveted with each other and with God that, Vegas rules. What's said in the group stays in the group.
Yeah.
That helped to open some doors. And
Yeah.
I think the first, at least chapter 2 and chapter 3 are really key to getting that theme going.
Yeah.
And once one person opens up, others open up.
Yeah. It's amazing how that works, isn't it?
I know.
And so part of what I love about your story is you became the key guy. You were our connecting point in the church. So I would call you a champion for men in the local church. But you went to Todd, and so Todd is not the guy who's leading the men's ministry necessarily, but he endorses what you do. He's affirming it. He's participating in it. So he went through the BetterMan curriculum with you, correct?
No, actually, what Todd's son, Gray, is in the core group or the leadership group. So Todd kind of bowed out of that because his son was in there.
Gotcha.
And it's actually been wonderful. We do have our family life minister, a guy named Jeremy, that is in the group, and we've got 2 other guys, and we're all different ranges of ages at all different places in our lives.
So let's talk about that, because one of your grandsons is on your leadership team, right?
No,
or is he?
No, he had to bow out early on before we got started, but like I said, that was really due to work schedule, school, stuff like that. But like I said, he definitely wants to be involved this summer.
Yeah.
So we're looking at starting up a group for teenagers and for college age men over summer break.
Yeah. And the lead on that is, who is that? That's
well, that would be Gray.
Yes.
So Gray, who is a very young father with a 1-year-old child and another one on the way. He will be leading that group. We also have a group that we just started that's with retired men. And we're meeting at 10 a.m. On a weekday, so that works out good for older men. And then we've got a group that will meet on Sunday mornings, because we've got a couple of guys that travel all week and they just can't do it during the week.
Now, do you see opportunities to get especially the retired men and the young guys together at some point and try to establish some connecting points? Do you see the value in that?
Yeah. What we've been talking about is that once we get through the core series, then we want to get all of the groups together.
Right.
Just to bond together. But I think the big thing with these grandfather groups that I'm leading right now is that understand that there are many families out there, and some of them probably within a lot of our families that have broken homes. And with half of the marriages ending in divorce now, that is a reality that everyone is dealing with. And even if it's not in your family, there are families in your church, that need this help. Because a woman can do wonderful things, in the life of a young man. But she cannot teach a boy how to be a man. It's just not in the cards. And I think that's the great message for grandfathers is that they are important, not just in their own families, but in the families of the church and the families of the community. And the experience I have had with my grandsons is that they're leaning on me because they know I am old, and maybe have some wisdom, and that might be one of the things. But like I said, it's having been through a lot. I think you've got a lot to tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Life is just like a roller coaster. It is up and down, and a young man hasn't seen that yet. But an older man has been through life's cycles and has experienced them and has learned from his mistakes, but has also learned what Christ can do, and that prayers can be answered, and they are answered every day. And moving forward with the idea that the older men can be of great value, in the BetterMan series, just from what they've been through in life, and by sharing some of their experiences that they've had.
That is so cool. I talk about with seasoned men frequently. So many guys are afraid to engage that relationship with younger men. And often what they say is, I've made so many mistakes that no one wants to learn anything from me. God can't use me. But nothing is further from the truth, because it's leaning into Christ during those difficult seasons that helps you see, oh, I didn't like that. I wouldn't want to do it again, but I'm so glad I have the wisdom that I received in that portion of my life. And so, God tells us that the comfort that you've received will be a comfort to someone else. And so what you went through, he's preparing you to help someone else. And so we have to position ourselves to not be fearful to use those experiences for the edification of others, but to position ourselves so that we can help them and to be available to them.
Well, Todd has a saying at Bethel that he uses, and it's called, "My mess is my message."
Yeah.
And it's so true.
Yeah.
And I have actually, when I did a testimony years ago, I actually had a young lady that came up to me in tears.
Yeah.
Afterwards and said, "I'm going through the same thing."
Wow.
And it was just amazing how God works
Yeah.
through your message to bring other people to Christ, and to understand that you don't have to fight this alone. You don't have to be an island of one when there are others that have been through the same thing, experienced their mistakes and their triumphs, and have used that to move forward with life. Because so many, I've got a good friend right now that's going through, many of these same problems, children, parents passing away, ill, things like that. And it's just amazing how a lot of people, when they're in that downtime, just cannot see the fact that this is temporary.
Yeah.
And things will get better. And Christ can help you solve these problems.
That's right.
Prayers are answered. And once you start that upswing again, you start to realize, wow, I didn't realize it at the time, but prayers are answered.
Yeah.
God has seen fit to help me out in this situation.
Yeah. And someone else needs to hear that.
Exactly.
And I often talk about this. There are also guys who are in the church that, instead of getting better, they get bitter because they have done all of that by themselves, and they've kind of kept their cards close to the vest. I mean, this was the problem with a lot of those World War II guys.
Oh, yeah.
And because they had believed that I can't tell anyone about this, they kept things to themselves, and they often self-medicated in alcohol and workaholism and all of these things. Right. And they ended up rotting on the inside.
No, you're exactly right. I have a lot of friends that were in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And what I have learned over the years is that the guys that saw action and saw a lot of horrible things don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
The guys that stayed in the States or stayed on a ship and never saw any action, all they want to do is talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think when you find people that have been in the service that just don't want to talk, I think that's a prime place where Noble Warriors, and the BetterMan series can help those guys out to start to release some of those things.
Yeah. And get people talking, give them an outlet, because Christ wants to help us, but we have to bring our troubles to him. He says,
right.
Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest.
Give you rest. Mm-hmm.
And so we have to bring those burdens to him, because Satan wants us to hold on to all of that stuff. And man, if you isolate yourself and you're never connected with other men, then Satan, that's a playground for him. He just gets in your thoughts and wears you out. And so I tell guys all the time that a wounded man, a guy who's never brought his challenges and his troubles to the cross and seen God deal with those, is a dangerous man, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But a man with scars is a valuable man, because those scars become kingdom stories.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I think the biggest thing that we learned as the leadership group when we were going through this, the biggest thing we learned in chapter 2 or 3 is that we're all going through the same stuff.
Yeah.
We've all either are going through it or have experienced it at some point in our life, but we're not alone.
Yeah.
We're not alone. We're all going through the same stuff. We're all exposed to the same, to the same general experiences, to the same temptations. We all have the same problems with our wives and our girlfriends. And you got to remember, these women were raised up when they were girls, they were raised up by women in the current society, just like we were raised up by our fathers. So they end up in a bad place sometimes too. Men are not important. Yeah. I don't need a man.
Yeah. So we get into some of those things, and we need to get back to the Word to see what God's design was.
Right.
Because when we kick against that, there's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
And so if we can get to a place where we agree that God is sovereign and God is creative and He's right and He has an order that He established, that if we'll just follow the rules,
right,
we'll see a better result. Doesn't mean that Satan's not going to torment us and tangle with us, because you're right. The temptations are out there. That Jesus said there's no temptation except what is common to man. And then, you also go back to Solomon in Ecclesiastes. He said there's nothing new under the sun. So all of these things are typical. They might have different flavors, but they're still out there. They're still the same pains. And if we can recognize that and give voice to it, that is so important for guys to find the space and the time to give voice to those things, not to have a gripe session or a whining session, but this is real.
Yeah. And we are important. Guys, we are important in the lives of our family.
Yeah.
And regardless of what society, regardless of what the current culture tells you, you are very, very important.
Yeah.
And there is no replacing.
There's no replacement.
In there. There's no replacement.
Yeah.
And you can be the best mother in the world, but you can't be a father.
Wow. That's a good word, Bruce. So tell me what's next. You guys have been through BetterMan as a core team, and you've got these 2 groups launched, getting ready to launch a 3rd one. You guys came to the Noble Warriors Conference in Richmond this year, and some of those guys, that was their first experience. And so what was their reaction to that when they got home?
We're all coming back next year.
That's awesome.
No, it was a tremendous experience. That was actually one of the sessions. I had been praying about a problem within my extended family, and had been praying about it. And I saw, lo and behold, there was a seminar on handling conflict.
Wow.
So in that small group, I picked up on some pointers, and it's been tremendous. It's awesome. Just amazing how God works. But I think the big thing is, we know now, we did a kickoff event, as you know, and we had, the barbecue and everything that, games, cornhole, all the stuff that guys like. We had about 32 men that attended that. And, everybody got really interested. But I think the thing that we learned through that process is that the best way to grow this is organically. Yeah. It's not like, I think we had a false expectation that all 32 men were going to sign up right away, but, that didn't happen. And, I think now that the Lord is working through us in a better way. Yeah. And that is to go make personal contact with these guys, and to look around the church and see, which groups might work good together, which people might be best to work together. And, so we're proceeding on that basis. We're really happy with where we're at. So thankful for your leadership and for all the suggestions you've given us along the way. But this thing is amazing. This whole thing is just amazing, and it's an answer to a prayer that I've had for many years.
Wow.
So.
Well, and before this, you guys were doing a breakfast, and it's a good breakfast because I've been there once a quarter, but that's about all the men were doing that you said, right?
That's right. I mean, as far as a group, we had a group that we've had since I was a kid, that serves breakfast every now and then. And So, but that's really it. It doesn't really do anything to building men up and solving the challenges that men are faced with in today's society.
And so here's what I would say, and you folks who you're listening to the podcast, you probably heard me say this before, but when you do those events that are feeding people and just getting some guys together, I call that men's ministry, because you're putting something on the calendar so you can say, yes, we have something going on, but that was not transformational.
Right.
And what you're doing now is what I would call, we're moving toward men's discipleship, where we're seeing men transformed by the word and by relationship with other men. We're seeing God do some work in some men's lives. And there's a huge difference between men's ministry that calendars events and men's discipleship that transforms men.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, you're exactly right. And
Big deal.
I think that this is, and that's really a different group that does the breakfast than what we're doing with. We call our group Pathfinders.
Yeah.
So like I said, the Pathfinders group is really dedicated to building men through discipleship and through helping each other. But I think it's just key that men know that they're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And they don't have to solve all the problems of the world by themselves.
Yep.
It just can't be done.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
Yeah. So part of what I love, Bruce, I ask you that question specifically and purposely, you're 74 years old. There are a lot of guys who think I'm 74, there's nothing else for me to do in the church, but you are stirring things up and the Lord is using you. He's working through you, but He's also working in you. He's still transforming Bruce Moseley and teaching you things about what it means to walk faithfully with Him as you stand beside your wife if she's battling cancer. I mean, you're still learning, what does it mean to be God's man in my home?
Mm-hmm. Well, what people at the church are nicknaming me is Susie Homemaker, because I'm learning all about washing dishes and washing clothes and cleaning house and all that. And my wife's going through a horrific journey right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, myself and our family and our church are praying for her all the time.
Yeah.
But I think the blessing that I have received through that is that I've learned to step up. And there are times in your life where you kind of float along and everything is going fine. You go to work, you come home, you have dinner, you help the kids with the homework or whatever. But there are times in the life where a man is called for to step up and be present and do what he vowed to do.
Yeah.
When he got married.
That's awesome. How long have you guys been married?
51 years.
Wow. That's awesome.
51 years. And they're wonderful years. I wouldn't trade them for anything. A lot of times I'm asked, if I had to go back and change my life, considering the things I have been through, earlier 20-some years ago and where I'm at today, would I change anything? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
Because I know that God has worked in my life, not only to bring me to this part in the program that we're at here, but to get my family, in better shape, and to get all of my children and my grandchildren to where they know that there is more out there than what you see in this world.
Yeah, yeah. What a gift that the Lord has given you at this season of life.
Absolutely.
I'm grateful for that.
Absolutely.
I am grateful for that, and just grateful for your leadership at Bethel Church, at Bethel Baptist, and pray that it'll continue.
Well, I pray for for Noble Warriors all the time, and I think y'all are doing a fantastic thing. The way that you are taking and leading through the local church is quite different than it was, back in the day, but it's a wonderful thing to build from the bottom up, and to see men's lives change in close, intimate settings, which won't happen in a large group.
Yeah, you have to do this in a smaller environment. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Bruce, I am grateful that you joined us today, and I'll give you one last question. What would you say to the guy who's sitting in the pew thinking, man, I wish somebody would step up and do something to get men's discipleship started here at this church? I feel like something should be done, who's going to do it? What would you say to that guy?
First of all, pray. It's amazing that you don't think you've got the time or that you're not a leader, that you can't do things, but with God's help, you somehow find the time.
Yeah.
And you somehow things happen. And you don't have to do it by yourself.
Right.
You know, the first thing I did was got this leadership team together with your advice. And boy, what a blessing it has been when it came time to pull off an event or make things happen, to have 5 other guys that were just everybody going in different directions, but toward a common goal. You
That's
know,
huge.
but it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen. The same way your conferences don't happen just with Mike Young.
That's exactly
You know,
right. It's a whole bunch of people.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, but
That's
it can
right.
happen, and I think praying about it and seeking God's strength and wisdom toward building up the program, it is just so important now.
Yeah.
You know, that we get this, that we get our little corner of the world, which starts in our church.
Yeah.
In better shape for men.
Yeah.
You know, and we have been led down a path for, 30, 40, 50 years now, that we don't have to continue down.
Yeah.
You know, the family is just so important.
Yeah.
When all else fails, the family is still there.
Yeah.
And it's so important that people build their families up.
Yeah.
And that they not just come home in the evenings, you know, and tell the kids, I'm busy, I've got more work to do. You've got to spend time.
Yeah.
Time is the most precious commodity with these children. But time is what they need.
Yeah.
They need your time, they need your wisdom, they need your strength, and they need your faith.
Yeah. They need to see all of those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they know. It's funny how kids know
Yeah.
when something is genuine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you know, I tell people all the time that the Lord instituted created two institutions to bring Him glory, to create worshipers, and to give, to advance His kingdom. It's the family and the church. And I don't think it's by coincidence. I think it's by design that God ordained that men should step up and lead in both of these areas. Doesn't mean we do that by ourselves. It doesn't mean that our wives and the ladies in the church are not valuable, but there is a specific responsibility for men to take initiative to say, this is the direction that we're going. We're going to pursue the Lord, so that we can live out 1 Corinthians 11:1. Paul says, follow me as I follow the example of Christ. And so, man, if every guy could say, I'm following Jesus, so come with me as we follow Jesus together as a family.
And I think just understanding that biblically and historically, men are the builders.
Yeah.
They are the ones that, you know, women are extremely important, and I don't want to negate in any way the importance of the woman in the family, but guys have a place too. Yeah. And they are important.
And doing what you're doing at Bethel through BetterMan and some other assets is going to help guys understand how to step into that role in an honoring way. Honor God, honor my wife, honor my family. And so that's beautiful. I'm going to, one final thing, just a bit of trivia. We're very close to a place called Moseley, Virginia.
Yes, you are.
and your last name is Moseley. So tell me why Moseley, Virginia is called Moseley, Virginia.
Oh, gosh. Well, it goes back a long, long ways.
Yeah.
My family has been around here since, believe it or not, the early 1700s.
Wow.
And I actually live in a house that has been gifted to me by my parents, and this house was built in 1818.
Yeah.
So Moseley is named after my ancestors and the house that I live in. And the original home place has been passed down from generation to generation. We're still farming. Yeah. You know. And Moseley, Virginia, the way it got its name was not because of something famous that somebody did or something, you know, that involved some accolades or anything like that. It had to do with the fact that back in the day, before cars were invented, everything was delivered to local stores by train.
Yeah.
And so they would drop things off. A train would stop at every crossing. There was typically a little store at every train crossing. And that's where people got their mail. So their mail was delivered to these little stores at every train crossing. And so it was just Moseley store, developed into Moseley Post Office, which eventually now has become a mega post office on Hull Street. And but it was really close to my house.
That's amazing.
At the time that it was named.
Well, so that's just a free bit of trivia for the Noble Warriors community there. So thanks for sharing that, Bruce. That was fun.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being with us, brother. I appreciate it. Well, folks, that brings us to the conclusion of another Noble Man podcast. We are so glad that you joined us, and I'm grateful for Bruce and his leadership at Bethel, his investment in his grandchildren and his children, and just his affirmation of the experience of working with Noble Warriors. And so we'll put some links into our show notes here, and we'll look forward to catching you on the next Noble Man podcast. God bless you, folks.